Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Thought Leaders Live, where we talk with thought leaders in business, life, and all points in between. And look who dropped by to visit us today. An old friend, very, not age wise. I mean,
Yeah, well,
yeah. Grant Gooding, founder of Proof Positioning, a company that goes beyond traditional research by measuring emotional and instinctive responses. Grant, thank you for joining me.
it's good to see you again, brother. I'm actually just excited that I you think of me as a thought leader, and even though you didn't say that, it's assumed as part of the show title, right?
Exactly. I do think of you as a thought leader. Absolutely. And you're going to prove it to us in the next half hour.
Oh well,
Absolutely.
we'll see what happens. We'll see what
All
happens.
right. So the title of the show is Why Most Customer Research Fails and What Actually Drives People to Act. And so just a little background. I met Grant, I don't know, like it might even have been
Don't
8
say
years
it.
ago. Yeah.
Don't say 10.
I'm not going to say the T word. And Grant presented on emotional data and told us some pretty incredible things about learning why people buy. And I became a little bit of a fanboy, I have to admit. We've talked several times, actually wrote an article about my friend, but Grant, why don't you tell us a little bit about proof positioning and your particular journey, your own personal and professional journey?
Yeah, so I think a lot of folks just sort of ended up here. It was absolutely unintentional. Yeah, don't tell anybody. It's much more impressive if it's planned out.
Right.
Uh, I was a mergers and acquisitions analyst doing integration planning. So I worked in the private equity space and the M&A space and, um, learned quite a bit about business. My background's in business and strategy and uh, kind of stumbled into asking, questions that no one cared to know the answer to, which is like, hey, how come integration plan failures happen? And how come acquisitions fail post acquisition? And we found out that there was this one thing that no one was really measuring, and that was like why customers do business with organizations. And it turns out that if you know that, and you've got two organizations that you're kind of trying to bring together, makes everything really easy. And if you don't know that, it's kind of hard to know what to change. What do it's like it's really easy to look at two companies and go, well, they both have customer service, like call center departments. We don't need both of those. Like, well, yeah, but so they typically will pick the one that has the best operational efficiency. And it's like, yeah, but which one has the closest connection to the customer? Because if you
Mm.
change that, you've changed their experience. And the next thing you know, you start losing customers and you have no idea why. So we started digging into like trying to find out, well, how do you measure that? Like, what do you do? And we're just dumb enough to ask stupid questions like, well, how do people do that now? Like, that's customer research on like what are the models that are being used and what are the methods? And it turns out all the methods, for the most part, all exist for the same reason, and that is to make things easy on the analyst, which we thought was sort of irrelevant. Like, we are measuring people after all. Why don't we understand people in a way that's important and then create a measurement around that? So that's what we sort of did. We started reading about neuroscience and we started reading about, you know, behavioral economics and psychology and we kind of built this system that allows us to quantify emotional resonance. So, and that's where emotional data came from, like when we first met Greg. So essentially what we are kind of our superpower really is figuring out what messages and what ideas are most likely to resonate with audiences. So we're a one trick pony. I will say we don't do a lot. We do that one thing. It's a pretty good trick, but we don't really do anything other than that.
Well, hold up, Grant. You know, there are other customer research companies that claim to do the same thing. They claim to also have that one trick. Where are they coming up short?
Well, you could say anything. they might say, well, we're doing qualitative, right? So we're asking people. Well, let's just dive into that for a second. If you know anything about psychology or neuroscience, you know that asking someone a question, which is called inductive analysis, is an absolutely garbage way to get accurate data. Um, you 100% should not trust what people say, especially when they're being questioned. And let me put an exclamation point on that. Not only do I believe that, if you read the literature, you will believe that, and the CIA does not believe that. So here's how we know that. There was a special agent in the FBI that was a psychologist that back in the like late 70s or 80s uh, developed a methodology called elicitation. Now, what he was able to figure out is that, remember those like old movies, like when it was like there's like an interrogation happening, and it's like, where were you last night? Well, apparently that's not the best way to get an honest answer.
You
So
waterboard. Don't you just waterboard?
yeah, yeah, I'm pretty sure everybody's fine with that. With the But if not, they did figure out a little bit more of efficient, less illegal way to get accurate information out of people, and that is through an elicitation technique. So, for instance, if you ask someone a question, what they call it a security guard. A security guard pops up in your head. And what it's doing is it's making a bunch of micro calculations in the neocortex of the brain, especially here in the frontal lobe, which is who's asking me, what's their social status, what are the potential consequences if I answer, you know, how much information should I answer? And so what you get is this sort of like lie, whether it's a little lie or a big lie, your brain has packaged this answer, and you should not rely on it. So what they figured out was if you make statements, the brain does not have a security guard that pops up, and you get honesty. So the CIA and the FBI, their interrogators, still use this methodology in order to get information. They make what's called near truth statements. So instead of asking someone, where were you last night? They might make a statement that says, I was watching the game last night, and I got in kind of late. You probably did too. So I want to get out of here. What do you think? And right, like this, now all of a sudden it's non-threatening, and you've almost entered into this like friend mode, and people are more conversational, and the security guard isn't there. Now, whether or not they give you the answer you want is, that's a whole nother conversation. But you're getting truth, and that's the important thing. So they actually still train all of their agents to, and they have all these scenarios that they put them in where they're not allowed to ask questions in order to get information. And by the way, this works in everything in life. I use this on my almost teenager, who's super cool. And so like I get a lot of one word answers out of him. Hey, how was school today? Fine. So I don't say that anymore. I don't ask him, how was your test? Fine. It was great. I nailed it. Uh, Instead, I'll say something like, um, dude, you look like you had a really good day today. And he starts talking, right? And I get information out of him. It really works. You can use it on Uber drivers, which is fun. It's a fun place to practice. Um, but anyway, so that elicitation model is one of the ways that if you're doing appropriate research and you say that you could get to someone's emotional core. First of all, I'll put our stuff against anybody's. I doubt very much it's real, but we have a meta system that allows us to quantify it and do it in a very scientifically responsible way. Um, so that's my responsible, like, critiquing of someone that says that they can get to the emotional core. I doubt that very, very much. But there are ways to do it.
Can you share a few examples of how you do it, your methodology, or is that if you have to tell me, you'll have to kill me kind of info?
Yeah, well, we're states apart, so I'll just tell you. And it's really kind of easy. So what pick a Well, it's easy in theory. So if you want to figure out if a product, for instance, right, every product and every service has a series of value propositions associated with it. It could be almost anything. I mean, pick you had a lot knew a lot in manufacturing. Like if you pick any random client, pick a client that's got a role that's real tough.
Pick a client that has a what?
That's
Sorry.
tough. That's really tough. Like has a tough product to sell.
Okay.
We'll pick a tough one.
All right. They sell converting machinery.
Okay, what's that?
It is it's manufacture. It's a manufacturing machine, and it builds really complex products that takes raw materials and converts them into another thing. So they might make a band-aid package or something like that.
Okay, so it's a B2B manufacturing system where they're making raw materials for other manufacturers or for assembly.
Taking raw materials and making them into converting them into a finished product.
Right. Okay. So in that B2B situation, you've got their customers also in their supply chain to some extent, right? So let's just say that their ability to hit a particular timeline, that's going to be one value proposition, right? Can they
Right.
do this quickly? Two, what about like we would say quality is a garbage idea, but like let's just say the density, right? Since they're making a raw material, the density of the product is important because it's custom manufacturing. Defects per million, right, or defects per thousand.
Sure.
Uh, that's a value proposition. Being able to directly upload schematics rather than having those, rather than going through a whole system for that to happen. All of these things you could think of are all important to their customer to some extent. The real question isn't if they are important, because you can make a very reasonable argument that all of them are. It's what are the things that really matter? Some of them are table stakes. Some of them they kind of are ignorable. And some of them are like, that's why I'm doing business with you. And if you don't know where all of those value propositions fall within that scale of importance, how are you supposed to grow the company?
Right.
What if all of your messaging and all of your marketing are focused on things that your customer believes are table stakes? What if there's things with the internal processes about how that client works that are absolutely critical to the company's success and every employee knows it? When that happens, they tend to tell you, hey, Greg, we need to talk about this because without this, this whole thing falls apart. Like, well, that's great, but is that customer facing? What if it's totally irrelevant? Just because it's important to make sure that it's success, or that thing exists to make the business successful, doesn't mean the customer cares at all. So understanding which things are important and which ones aren't, it's the difference between having a company that's growing and having one that's barely getting by.
So once you using your methodologies, once you find out what that is, and I kind of recall from the first time I heard you speak, it was not just what they picked, but how quickly they chose it. Really was a big indicator of an emotional response. Tell me what you do with that data and how you feed it back to the company and how do they react to it.
Well, that's a metadata system that we built underneath the platform. And the reason we did that is just to make our numbers more accurate. So that came from thinking fast and slow. So if you're familiar with Daniel Kahneman, very famous, won the Nobel Prize, was basically the father of behavioral economics. And yeah, he wrote this book, Thinking Fast and Slow. A lot of people have heard of it. Very few have read it. It's an incredibly dense and challenging read. So I recommend people, if you want to do a Blinkist, that would be the one. It's a very challenging book. But anyway, the research, I believe, was done by Dr. Kitty Hugh at Johns Hopkins. And they found that the human brain makes a decision roughly in about 200 milliseconds.
Wow.
And so the way that decisions work is information comes into the amygdala, threat, right? Assessment is done, go into the limbic system. And if you don't really know if the brain doesn't really know what's happening, meaning did this fall within the belief sector of the brain? Beliefs are incredibly important. You have to we are just one of the things we figured out about humans is that we're essentially just these walking systems of belief. And if you fall outside of that belief, it creates cognitive dissonance and bad things. That's why political arguments never, at the end of no political argument is the other person like, you know what, you're 100% right. I'm on board. That's good. Right? That you're fighting concrete elements in the brain that have been there since their teenage years.
Hmm.
And it's very, very hard to change those. Um, but anyway, that's timing's really just a metadata uh, kind of tool that we built into our system to help make our numbers more accurate. It all boils down to one basic number. We call that emotional resonance score.
Okay.
And every value proposition, every reason to buy, every sales message all has an emotional resonance score somewhere between 0 and 100. The higher the score is, the higher the mathematical probability of you making a sale. The lower the number is, the more we say, hey, don't talk about this. You're killing the deal every time you mention it.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting from the first time I heard you present was I think you said this you absolutely should talk about and this you shouldn't. And I don't think enough people talk about that, don't mention this, don't get into this. I think that's really pretty amazing. What has happened when, I mean, you've been around for a while, your comp proof has been around for a while. Give me some kind of examples of what people have done with the data. How did they change their sales and marketing? And then what kind of swings and positive did they see?
Yeah. So, yeah, I think we passed 800 engagements last year.
Oh,
So
no.
we've done a lot and seen a lot. You know, it, we get charged with various types of tasks, right? Like every executive has something that they're working on. As a matter of fact, we found out that every executive, for the most part, can really only work on 4 initiatives in a year, like 4 major initiatives, and that's it. Uh, Even when they tried 5, they only got to 4. So, launch a new product, enter a new market, you know, rework the employee comp, right? 4 things. Not that they're going to get 4 accomplished, 4 that they'll actually get meaningful work done on. So those are the types of things we work on. Someone says, hey, we've got this new product or we got an existing product and we want to move it into a new market, but we don't really understand. We kind of have a general sense of whether or not it's going to be successful, but we don't really know the competition. And so we might go work on that. And we're going to identify, hey, here's the addressable market, here's the serviceable market, more importantly. Um, this is these are the messages that are most likely to resonate with those people. Here's what the competition stack looks like. Here's how satisfied they are with their competition. Here's where there are kinks in the armor where you can go win market share easily. Um, and we can even sort of help reverse engineer what success might look like if they're moving into a new market. Or sometimes we say, yeesh, this is going to be tough. And here are the reasons this is going to be tough. It might make sense to take your CapEx and move it into another area
Mm,
because the penetration of this market, there's barriers that people don't account for. Most of the time they think about, yeah, well, here's a competitor and they've got XYZ percentage of the market based on estimation. And so we know that they're going to be tougher to beat, but maybe they're bad at customer service. We're going to steal customers away with customer service. But they don't realize like the fragmented competition that exists there, willingness to switch. They don't analyze the invisible barriers, which are the mental barriers of like, I don't want to switch, right? Switching is more of a pain in the butt than dealing with the current level of pain, even if
right.
I'm not dissatisfied. Humans are weird. Humans will tolerate tolerate a painful position uh, and stay status quo if they perceive change to be more painful. Humans hate change, so
Challengers.
so you really got to be careful around all these things. So we come in and we analyze all kinds of situations. So even though we have lots of engagements, each one of those engagements contains multiple things that we worked on. So it's thousands and thousands of kind of micro situations that executives every day deal with, um, and they have resulted in humongous investments. Uh, you know, the ones that I kind of like the most, to be quite frank, are like, "Hey, don't do this; it's not going to work." Um,
Right.
because it's easy to say, "Ooh, that's exciting, go do it," but it takes a lot of discipline, and it's important to be able to identify the things that aren't going to work, because most things don't. We're a very optimistic species, and so being able to say, "Hey, this probably isn't the best use of time and capital. Let's go identify some areas where we can pick up money that's sitting on the ground rather
Hmm.
than trying to fight for it."
Yeah. No, I like that. So tell me a little bit about what these projects look like and how you're executing them today. I know you're working on a new product that you're rolling out, and what could people expect if they're going to take this, take this approach with you?
Yeah. Um, so for the last 10 to 12 years, um, we, or for the first 10 to 12 years, we we did research studies, just like you would think.
Hmm.
There's a scope meeting, and then we figure out what we're going to do, and then you got to have people, and you got to write a big check, and there's all the things that you would assume would exist with, and there's a big readout. Um, Now we don't do the readouts like most folks. I had, for the first part of my career, I was the person that had to deal with the readouts, and I'm like, thanks for the stack of papers. Just turn it into money. I just need you to turn the stack of papers you gave me into cash somehow. I don't want to read this. I want you to tell me what to do, right? So I can make money. That's the point. So we don't have readouts like that, but it's still, you got to go through a process, and which still makes sense, right? That's still probably half the work that we do. I would say you got to go through, you got to do research. It's the responsible thing to do in a lot of situations. But we did, like I mentioned earlier, we figured out that it takes an executive can only really work on about four things.
Hmm.
So we said, well, that's really interesting. What if we just built a product that allows you to kind of give you a glimpse into that one thing that you're working on. It's not a big scope, it's small, it's narrow, it's hyper focused on that one thing, and you don't have to write a big check. And so we built that about a year ago, and people love it. Turns out people don't like writing big checks, and they like things to be simple. So we built that. It's a monthly fee. It's 1,200 bucks a month until that changes. But it's like the easiest thing ever, and like people absolutely love it. I wish we would have thought of doing this 10 years ago.
So how does it change? How does that approach change from the other approach? I mean, I'm assuming you still got to go through the big setup and, figure out what the scope or what you're doing, or is there just a different approach you take?
Yeah, it is a fraction of the effort for us and for the client, and it's a fraction of the money. It's a fraction of the time. It's just hyper focused on whatever it is they're working on. So instead of what we would normally do is those four things that someone's working on, and
Hmm.
typically more, our average, we call them burning questions, which is things we're solving for, was about six in a given study. And that's a lot. That's a lot of stuff for someone to digest.
Yeah.
Here's the product. Here's how you should enter the market. So instead, we just go, well, what are you working on right now? And they say, well, we're working on this new market. Okay, we'll just go do that. We'll look at that one market. We'll do this one very simple thing. We'll tell you what to do, and then we'll be done in a couple of weeks instead of a couple months.
Uh,
And then you go, okay, cool, awesome. We'll go do that. We'll execute. It doesn't have to be perfect. It has to be directionally correct. It's kind of like we're not trying to land a shuttle on the moon. We just need to make sure we're pointing at it. If that makes sense.
okay. Um, I'd be remiss if I had a conversation with you, as I do with every human being, and not mention AI.
Hmm.
Um, Curious how it's impacting your world.
It is, from an operations perspective, absolutely phenomenal. It is fantastic. It uh, we have some very interesting things we're working on that are AI, and they are some of the stuff that we can do, some of the stuff we can do already, and some of the stuff that we're theoretically going to be able to do is going to be unbelievable. Um, as far as from a market perspective, the newest kind of thing is synthetic audiences. So someone will go, well, I don't need to do research and talk to my customers necessarily. I'll just type it into Claude or whatever, and it'll tell me. No, it won't. Oh, it'll tell you something. But if you go and just Google like accuracy, I mean, just Google it, or you can put it in AI. It'll be honest for the most part. Accuracy of synthetic audience, it's not even close yet. There's lots of problems with um, there's lots of problems with accuracy. Those will get cleaned up, I think, more and more over time.
Yeah,
But the problem is that the the what any company is selling, right, is unique and dynamic, right? Most organizations believe that. Some people tell them, "Oh, your business isn't special." It's actually not true. The function and the operations of the business typically aren't unique. What is unique is your customer base, who's buying, the nuances of how you're doing it differently. If that wasn't the case, you wouldn't have any competitors. Everybody would be doing business with the same people, right? Everything would be a monopoly. So there's something you're doing that's unique, and getting and really making sure that you understand what that thing is, who it's going to resonate with, how to target them, how to talk about it. AI is not going to be able to get you there, not for a long time.
hmm. Let me ask you this, Grant. Just, and I'm going to make some generalizations there because I think what you just said there is really important in terms of what you might be doing is unique. What do you see when people? What motivates people most? Is it pain points like, oh, this is my problem, or is it something like, oh, you've got a great a new feature, that's what I really like, that's what I want. I mean, we ran a campaign for a client, two different ad sets, basically one focus on the positive new feature and then one focus on the pain, and there were two different markets, but same overall product. And one jumped on the pain, and then one jumped on the benefit. What do you? I mean, does it just varies depending on the situation?
It always varies, right? That's the responsible answer, but it's also the honest one. It does vary. So in your world, you want to probably the most I've seen it in the manufacturing space. The one of the most reliable value propositions is elimination of downtime. Downtime is something that is a fear based concept, and a word that will make somebody's like, just you
Yeah.
can just make an executive or a chief ops or somebody like that. You can just feel the norepinephrine dump into their spinal column, right? It gives them anxiety. They don't like that word. So a fear based word like, or fear based idea like downtime. Uh, is going to be effective in the manufacturing space because that's where money exists in a business that has low margins.
Hmm.
So if you say elimination of downtime, that's a positive way of saying a negative thing,
Hmm.
which is what we always try to find. I don't like trying to scare people. We have
Okay.
folks in politics that try to make us do that all the time.
Yeah.
Um, you know, you can make a positive moral high ground argument by taking something that's negative and turning it into a positive. And you might see clicks go down, but also the world of content consumption differs greatly from, yes, I'm a customer and I'm going to buy this. People typically don't buy things for negative reasons other than, there are there are a few types of business models where that's true, like preparation for disasters
Right.
insurance and things like that, where you're literally trying to defend against a bad situation. But for the
Yeah.
most part, You don't need to use negative stuff.
Yeah. Maybe to get their attention, but not to sell the product.
Well said.
Okay. Grant, we're almost at the top of the hour. Um, I think you're probably ready for your afternoon nap. So I want to get you on your way.
We are old friends. That's the old Grant needs his nap. Yeah.
Grant's been traveling a lot, in all fairness to Grant. So um, if somebody wants to work with proof positioning and learn more, especially about this new top secret, super cool product you're rolling out, how do they get a hold of you?
Oh well, that are you talking about the AI product?
No, not that. That's
Oh,
no
you mean
the
our Pulse program?
Pulse.
Yeah, the Pulse program's easy. It's like, hey, it's like, no barrier. Well, luckily I have a weird name. You can just Google my name. I think there's like an accountant in England and like a swimmer. There's some kid in Indiana that's like a really good swimmer. We share the same name. One of these days we'll meet. But yeah, you can Google my name or look up proof positioning. Call us, hang out.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, thanks for joining me, my friend. Always enlightening. Always enjoy the chat. And uh, whenever you got something new, please hit me up. We'll get you back in the show.
Greg, it's good to see you, brother.
Yep, you too. And thank you everyone for joining us for another edition of Thought Leaders Live. We'll catch you on the next one.